The Minnesota Vikings appear to be going all in on former Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. And coming up on today's show, diving into all of the latest smoke around the Vikings and Kyler Murray. We're going to kick it to Alec Lewis to start off. Alec Lewis, in a recent article talking about Kyler Murray, as he says the Vikings are expected to have serious discussions this week about Murray, but he has already been on their radar. They're in the market for an experienced, productive, and reliable starter who isn't going to break the bank. Murray addresses a lot of those issues. So, tapped in beat reporter Alec Lewis saying it, and also Ian Rapoport saying a place to keep an eye would be the Minnesota Vikings, talking about Kyler Murray, where he could possibly sign up here in free agency. So, we got Alec Lewis tapped into the Vikings. Ian Rapoport tapped into the entire NFL. How about the betting market, the bookmakers out west? According to DraftKings, Kyler Murray's next team odds, the Minnesota Vikings are standing at minus 110, with the Jets being plus 175, Dolphins plus 320, Browns plus 450, and the Falcons at plus 500. So I want to ask you guys this. Do you want the Vikings to sign Kyler Murray? If you do, go down there, hit that thumbs up icon. If you don't, comment why down below. Want to get the pulse of the fan base. Now let's dive into the rest of today's show. So I want to get this take to start today's show before I dive into all of my thoughts on Kyler Murray. Overall, I think this is a no-brainer for the Minnesota Vikings. But with what the Vikings did last offseason, where they let go of Sam Darnold, clearly a huge mistake. You let go of a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. It was a complete misjudgment, and you bet on J.J. McCarthy, and you completely botched that quarterback room this past season. But the Vikings got extremely lucky with Kyler Murray being released. It would be organizational malpractice not to sign him. You have a guy who is a former number one overall pick, who has a ton of talent, and he just fell into your lap this offseason. The Vikings should be feeling lucky. Us Vikings fans should be feeling lucky. And the best part is, Kyler Murray is going to sign a one-year, $1.3 million deal. There is no downside to this, in my opinion. Absolutely not. If you want to say maybe the one downside is, okay, a guy like J.J. McCarthy, you're pretty much kicking the tires on him in 2026. Yes, I hear you on that. But financially, no downside. I think Kyler has grown up a lot, where I don't think the off-the-field issues and the whole Call of Duty clause is that big of a deal. You could get this guy for $1.3 million. This is a no-brainer. And also, I understand Kyler Murray is not the perfect quarterback. I'm not saying the Vikings are going to sign him and it's like, oh, hey, we're guaranteed. We're in the NFC Championship game next season. We're in the Super Bowl next season. I'm not saying that, but he gives us the best chance to win football games next season. And also, he gives us the best chance to find a franchise quarterback. Because whether it's through the trade market, drafting, or free agency, the point of this whole thing is to find that franchise guy. Kyler Murray could still be that. But let's talk about the negatives here. Play both sides. I think the biggest negative around Kyler Murray is his injury history. And I think there's a wide gap between what is number two. Because in 2025, he only played in 5 games after suffering a Liz Frank tight mid-foot sprain. 2023 only played in 8 games as he was rehabbing the prior year ACL injury. But the prior year did suffer a hamstring strain and also tore his ACL and meniscus. Then back in 2021, he suffered a grade 2 ankle sprain and missed multiple games. So 4 out of the last 5 seasons, he has dealt with some pretty big-time injuries. So that's probably my number one concern with Kyler Murray. And number two, it's Murray on 25-plus yard passes. Warren Sharp was tweeting out these numbers, and Kyler Murray just not good enough the last couple of years. These are since 2022, I believe, so right after DeAndre Hopkins left, but he was last in completion rate, last in EPA per attempt, and last in yards per attempt overall with 7.5. Now, I hear this, and my counter-argument would be, well, the offensive he's running, whether it's Cliff Kingsbury or Drew Petzing, they are built on getting the ball out quick and almost using the short, quick passing game as another version of the run game. So he's checking the ball down a lot. I think it's one, his style of play, but also the offense that he was operating. It was the perfect marriage of having these numbers, eventually be the result since 2022. But I think if you look at all these numbers and you think about Kyler as a quarterback, and it kicks me back to the Kevin O'Connell quote, where organizations fail quarterbacks more than quarterbacks fail organizations. The Cardinals organization straight up failed Kyler Murray. This guy has all types of talent, and yes, did Kyler Murray, was he a perfect citizen in Arizona? No, but I think he did enough to at least be more successful in Arizona than what they actually were. And you think about the 2 coaches he had in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury is now buried on the Rams staff as an offensive just assistant. He's not going to probably be a head coach anytime soon again in the National Football League. Jonathan Gannon was a terrible head coach. So the two head coaches he had are nowhere compared to any of the coaches on the Vikings roster. Not just Kevin O'Connell, but Brian Flores, Josh McCown. I'm taking all three of those guys over these two boneheads that Kyler Murray had as his head coach in Arizona. And I also think this is telling. The Cardinals' record since 2020, with Kyler Murray, slightly below 500 football team. Honestly, I think this stat for Kyler is probably the best one, where it's like, hey, he was 33-38 with the Cardinals organization, but without him, they are 5-25. This is horrible. Like, this is a great indictment almost on Kyler Murray and how he elevated this Cardinals franchise, but he can only do so much in Arizona. And I can already see the keyboard warriors. But Patrick, what about the Call of Duty clause? Do we want to bring in a guy who is immature, who, the Cardinals had to put in a clause in his contract where he has to, study more film and he can't play video games late at night? Honestly, I think it was chicken shit by the Cardinals organization to even put that in his contract, but it kind of gives the same energy as the Sam Darnold seeing ghost memes and the Sam Darnold mono memes. And then the guy ended up winning a Super Bowl. So I think Kyler Murray and Sam Darnold are comparable, but like the whole jokes around Kyler and the Call of Duty clause, I just think it's Twitter memes kind of getting a little too out of control. It's in the same bucket as the see and go stuff, in my opinion. Now, I do want to share with you guys these stats. Shout out to Matthew Collier for putting these in his recent article. But it was Kyler in 2024, his last season, where he was playing majority of the season. Well, PFF, he was the 8th best clean pocket PFF grade in the entire NFL. I think he's going to have a lot of clean pockets in Minnesota. 21 big-time throws to 3 turnover-worthy plays, and they had a passer rating of 106.5. This is with the Arizona Cardinals. Imagine what he could do with the Vikings and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell, a great left tackle, a great right tackle, a young first-round pick at left guard. Hopefully they shore up the center position, but point being, the infrastructure in Minnesota is not even comparable to what he was doing with in Arizona. And also Alec Lewis adding some more to the fire here of Kyler Murray to the Vikes. In Minnesota's eyes, Murray's raw talent is undeniable. He throws accurately. He is a playmaker. It's easy to envision Murray operating many of the Vikings' boot concepts, allowing him to get out on the run and focus on one area of the field. Murray's interest in Minnesota makes sense too. Coach Kevin O'Connell has worked well with veteran quarterbacks, and superstar receiver Justin Jefferson offers an outlet that Murray hasn't had. This just makes too much sense on paper, guys. And it drives my mind crazy when I see other Vikings fans saying, like, oh, I want Geno Smith. I want Kirk Cousins over Kyler Murray. You're out of your damn mind. I think that is a ludicrous take to have. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not saying, like, oh, my way is, the number one right answer here to the quarterback situation this offseason, but to say you would rather have guys like Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins over a guy like Kyler Murray doesn't make sense at all. And you know who would be thrilled about Kyler Murray? Would be the best player on your football team, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson, heading into the next season, which quarterback out there on the market right now he would feel most confident in? It's Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray has the same superstar feel that Justin Jefferson has had. Now, Jefferson's been way more successful in the NFL compared to Kyler, but two guys who were really successful in high school, really successful in college, get to the NFL, and they both have this superstar feel about them. Like, Kyler Murray walking around in the Vikings locker room, the locker room feels different. The team feels different. And also, Kyler, when he did have a superstar receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, he was incredibly successful. 17 touchdowns when targeting D-Hop to only 3 picks, had a passer rating of 123.5. So they have that connection together. I love that for Justin Jefferson's sake. And also, one icing on the cake with Kyler Murray, and if you're going back and you're watching his tape from even 2025 this past season, the guy can still move his feet incredibly well. He is still an elite mobile quarterback where you would hope that Kyler, he shores up his on-structure part of the quarterback game. We're just getting the ball out on time, being accurate, but the levels to Kyler Murray, which I am so intrigued by, is just the backyard football stuff. When Kevin O'Connell calls a play, it's not there. Can the quarterback go out there and make something out of nothing? Kyler Murray offers you that. And also, he wants to be a Minnesota Viking. This tweet is from 2012. Shout out to the real ones on Twitter who dug this one up. but he said the Vikings in the playoffs. I think if the Vikings have the opportunity to sign Kyler, which they will, they need to do it. And the number one kind of keyboard warrior take against Kyler Murray joining the Vikings is, but Patrick, what about the scheme fit? Scheme fit, scheme fit, scheme fit. That's all I hear in terms of guys who are not against or who are not for Kyler Murray joining the Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell should be able to figure it out. Is Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams a good scheme fit together? Where Caleb Williams and Kyler Murray, very comparable quarterbacks. Kevin O'Connell and Ben Johnson, very comparable offensive minds. That ended up working out for Chicago. KOC would have to adjust. Or Kyler, just his natural talent, I think he could fit in the more offenses than people give him credit for. The scheme fit argument, I just don't understand it. I understand in some respect where it's like, yes, on paper, like the ideal quarterback for a Kevin O'Connell offense is like a Joe Burrow over a Josh Allen, for example. But who would you rather have? I would rather have Josh Allen. Like, you wouldn't be saying scheme fit for stuff like that. And that's why I wouldn't be saying scheme fit in my argument for Geno Smith over Kyler Murray if that's who I wanted. But you guys pick a quarterback for me. I think it's down to these two guys. Obviously still waiting on the Raiders to release Geno Smith. But you guys let me know. Pick a quarterback. Give me a number 1 for Kyler Murray or give me a 7 for Geno Smith. Now I'm going to be making my case why Geno Smith really doesn't make any sense for the Minnesota Vikings on the back half of today's show. There are a lot of people out there and a lot of Vikings fans who have a lot of intrigue in Geno Smith. I really don't at all. And I'll explain why here coming up in just a second. But before I do so, do need to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Now the cold days are here, and if you guys still have some big-time goals but no time to cook, Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So eat well without all the planning or cooking. And I love Factor because they have quality, functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. They have no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils, which is perfect for my diet. And here covering the Vikings at Chat Sports, work a lot of longer days, but Factor completely has changed my life because I don't need to make a home-cooked meal every single time I get off of work. So head to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off. Use promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while your subscription is active. That link is in the comment section and description of today's show. All right, I'm not a fan of the Vikings bringing Geno Smith. I will honestly, if the Vikings do end up signing Geno Smith, and you guys want to see the number 1 crash out possibly I've ever had on a channel, make sure you tune into our live coverage during free agency because I will lose my freaking mind if they sign Geno Smith. Number 1, let's just break it down like this. Can Geno Smith be a franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings? The answer is no. He is 35 years old. Can Kyler Murray be the franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings? Yes. Will he? I don't know. But can he? Yes. Can J.J. McCarthy be the franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings? Will he? Who knows? But can he? Absolutely. Geno Smith is in the same bucket as Kirk Cousins. So if you want to bring in Geno Smith, why not just bring in Kirk Cousins? Somebody who is already familiar with the offense, has a connection with Justin Jefferson. What is the difference between who Geno is at this point and who Kirk Cousins is at this point? Geno Smith's 2 years younger? Geno Smith didn't have a torn Achilles 2 years ago. That would be the only argument you could really make, but they are in the same bucket. So I would rather just take a chance on the guy who's already familiar with the offense, familiar with Justin Jefferson, just familiar with the whole culture that Kevin O'Connell has built here. So if it is not, for whatever reason, maybe the Vikings don't view Kyler Murray as the guy. If it is not Kyler, you ride out with J.J. McCarthy. That's the only 2 options I think are acceptable. Because if you go out there and you do sign Geno Smith and he is the starting quarterback next season, I think it would be a disaster. I don't get that process whatsoever. So if it's not Kyler Murray, just ride it out with J.J. McCarthy and sign the high-end backup. And also, if you make the argument, well, what about Geno Smith as a high-end backup? I don't want him in the locker room. This guy has a terrible reputation. Our guy Mitchell runs with the Raiders Report. He has a lot to say on Geno Smith, and maybe we could have him on the show potentially if the Vikings do end up, going that direction. But I don't want Geno Smith in the locker room. This guy was flipping off Raiders fans this time last year. This guy was an asshole with the Jets. He was an asshole with Seattle. That's why they let him out the door. I don't want him in the locker room. If you are going to go with the backup quarterback for J.J. McCarthy, I would go Joe Flacco, a guy who is a veteran, who has won a Super Bowl, who understands what it takes to lead stacked teams on deep playoff runs. I'd rather have a guy like Flacco. I'd rather have Kirk than Geno Smith. There's no reason why the Vikings should bring in Geno Smith. I would take a bunch of guys over him, but those are my thoughts, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. If you guys made it to the end, just hit me with those skulls down below in the comment section. More videos coming out this entire week. Going to get a ton of content, so make sure you guys are subscribed as well. And we'll see you guys next time. As always, Skull Vikes.